and it's going to be a bit of a tough task tonight to pick out some positives, but I'm sure we're gonna have a stab at it. And although we got to see him, it wasn't the JSN that we were all ready to see because he wasn't 100%.
I do think that he didn't look like a rookie. I think that's the biggest compliment you can pay for a rookie on debut, is not looking like one. Welcome back to the We Talk Seahawks Rookie Watch podcast with myself and James. We are coming in hot off the back of a incredibly disappointing first week against the Rams. But we are tasked this evening with the job of picking out some bright spots from the performance there with our rookies and second year players. So, James, how you doing, buddy? How you feeling after last week?
Yeah, I'm all right. My head's in the clouds a little bit. I don't know really where I am. I don't know whether I've moved on yet. I don't know whether I'm still distraught by it. This Lions game needs to hurry up, and hopefully we can sort of exercise some demons a little bit and put things right, and we'll all quickly forget about it. But so long as that game doesn't come around, until we don't win again, it's just going to linger and linger. And it's going to be a bit of a tough task tonight to pick out some positives, but I'm sure we're going to have a stab at it. We'll have a good go. There's a few people.
Yeah,
so
I think so too.
Yeah.
Well, we'll start very quickly with talking about injuries, because whilst they're usually a depressing subject, we have got some good news there, in that we're likely to see our number 5 overall pick, Devon Witherspoon, this week. It looks like he's had so far a full week of unlimited practice, and I think we'd both agree that we sorely missed a predator in the sort of nickel position. We saw far too many completed passes without anyone getting absolutely annihilated by the sort of hard-hitting players we usually see in there. So, are you feeling excited to see what we picked?
Yeah, if he's 100%, because like I said, Pez made a decent point in the last pod about JSN. Although we got to see him, it wasn't the JSN that we were all ready to see because he wasn't 100%. So if Witherspoon's 100% and he's good to go, then I'm really excited. If we're putting an 80% Witherspoon out there, then you still got to sort of hold your breath a little bit. But if he's full go kind of thing, then yeah, I mean, when was the last time have we ever picked this high in the draft? I can't even remember.
No, I don't think so.
So 5th overall, a thumper on the defense. I mean, everyone is rightly so excited to come in, and we need him. By the looks of it, we desperately need him, and it's going to be interesting whether he does play purely in the nickel, or because Mike Jackson was so poor for me against the Rams, will they be tempted to maybe play him outside a little bit and see what he can do? I don't know, but yeah. Fundamentals of your question, yeah, I'm really excited to see Devon Witherspoon, and I think we really need him.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there were far too many completed passes over the middle in that game without there being any consequence to it. And I know a lot of that comes from a lack of pass rush. If the quarterback's got loads of time for the routes to mature, there's inevitably going to be a man getting free. And the way they schemed it up, it was always over the middle. So I mean, even if Devon Witherspoon's in there and we don't get a pass rush, he's probably already chasing the first guy that went through the first guy that's gone past him, and there's still going to be a hole there. But for me, we were a bit too timid. There seemed to be a lack of fire and juice, and there didn't seem to be any real. Like I say, just it was timid. So Devon Witherspoon is a real presence in there. He's a barking dog. He really sort of is a real vocal sort of player, and I feel like that in itself would be already an improvement on what was kind of a soft underbelly on Sunday night. So that I'm hyped for. Other injuries, I don't think we picked up any new ones with our first year rookies. Obviously, in terms of our second year, that was a bit of a tragedy with the 2 tackles. We picked up some guys off some practice squads. I'll have to apologize to you for not knowing the names. I can't remember. No. But we've also got Jason Peters hopefully to come in, and I feel like Jason Peters, even when we're fit again at tackle, assuming we are this year, that is an extremely experienced guy to have in that room with our two rookies. I think there's a little bit more to be gained than just a rotational piece when everyone's fit. I think there's a real package there with what we gain there for our players. And I also think going into next year's draft, I think potentially Stone Forsyth becomes a casualty to our roster, and we potentially draft another one. So we could be staring down the barrel of 3 young tackles next year. So a bit of experience in that room's nice. Not that I'm suggesting Jason Peters is there for another year after this one.
Oh.
I mean, it'd be £480 by that point, well, 42. So let's not go there. So talking about our rookies from that game, was there a one that you thought deserves a shout in particular?
I mean, not really. Other than Mike Morris, I think I was quite quietly impressed with Mike Morris. Obviously, the rest of them, obviously, like we said, JSM wasn't fully good. Derek Hall, we didn't see enough of. Again, Zach Charbonnet didn't potentially see enough of. Cameron Young, I mean, did he even get a snap in that game? I can't remember. But if he didn't see enough of him. Jarek Reed, I can't remember him coming on the field, and obviously Kenny McIntosh is injured. So I think out of the ones that we had the chance to see, I think Mike Morris made the biggest impact. I thought he was. I mean, he's very easily to find on the field with his big dreadlocks and his big hair locking out of his helmet, and
he's taller than your average defensive tackle as well.
He kind of surprised me as to how big he was on the field, passing the kind of eye test. I didn't think he would be that big, but I was just impressed in terms of the run defense side of it. He seemed to always be flying towards the football and stuff in the runner, and even if he wasn't the guy making the tackle, he was the next guy on him, if you know what I mean. He was half tackles and wrapping people up with someone else, so he was always in and around the football, and for his NFL debut against a legit runner in Cam Akers as well, to hold them on the ground the way we did, I was really impressed with Mike Morris. So I think he takes the crown for me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think he's the one. You obviously know I'm quite sort of invested at this point in Morris, because he now has to come good for us, because I've shouted him out and predicted him, etc. to the Seahawks. But I do think that he didn't look like a rookie. I think that's the biggest compliment you can pay for a rookie on debut, is not looking like one. And I said to you on the main pod, I think, and Pez, that I think his biggest adaptation from playing the edge at Michigan to playing inside for us, other than the weight, which he obviously strapped on easy peasy, is going to be how he handles low center of gravity, big guards that are just going to get into him and get underneath him and use leverage against him. However, what we saw a lot of in that game was him being faster, and he really gets into the pads of the guards very quickly. He's getting a good pad height, which I think Michael Bennett was saying that he was trying to get into him during our preseason when he was on commentary. He said the time he spent with Mike Morris, he was trying to get him to work off a really good pad height. I think if you start with that low pad height, it's very hard. If your pad height's low and your chest is low, it's hard for the guards to get into you and lift you up and take you off that leverage. So he's using that plus a quick get off, getting good hand position into guards. And the other thing we saw from him as well was knocking his guard back, and if the runner was coming through the middle or outside, disengaging and hunting the ball. That's something you don't see from average three techs and defensive tackles in the league. That disengaging with the guy that's trying to stop you getting to the ball is so tough, and at the NFL level. And there was multiple occasions, like you said, where someone had already made contact with the runner, and he peeled off and joined and stopped for no gain or tackle for loss. So that's already advanced play from that position from a guy who's not physically suited. That impressed me massively.
Yeah, I think that, like you're saying, I think it's quite an important thing that we must say about Mike Morris, that this is a guy not only on NFL debut, but being asked to play an entirely new position that he's never played before, and to look that impressive as well, to cut all that weight off and well, no, sorry, not cut the weight off, put the pounds on, and shift over inside and play as well as he did. he looks like a very cerebral player, looks like a very sort of switched on player who'll develop quickly rather than being a slow burner, which you might not expect for a day 3 pick. But I think he's picking the game up incredibly quickly. And if he's working with people like Michael Bennett, then the sky's the limit for him, really. So hopefully he just keeps to improve and improve.
Yeah, I agree. Really impressed with Mike Morris. Other honourable mentions, we didn't see an awful lot from D Hall, but he did play 25% of our defensive snaps. So he did get a workload. You mentioned Cameron Young, he had 2 snaps, so he was out there, but towards the end of the game when it had gone, I think they gave him some sort of snaps to cut his teeth. Who else we got? I've got the snaps in front of me. It's not actually that many on defense. Boye Mafe played 53% of the snaps. I know we usually talk about second-year players towards the end of the pod, but I think when you look at the snaps and who's had a real injection of extra responsibility, Mafe taking 53 on the left was huge. And interestingly, Darrell Taylor, who obviously, again, isn't a rookie, his snaps were at 46%. So him and Mafe actually almost right down the middle shared snaps off that left edge. So that's something interesting to look at. I think that combination gives us 2 very strong options off the left, and I'm kind of glad they're not diluting either of them too much by making them take 25%, 30%. That's a positive, I think. We'll move on a little bit and talk about our second-year guys. One person I do want to speak about very quickly, you wouldn't have heard his name called very much in the game, but Tariq Woolen, I think the stats after the game would surprise some people, but he was targeted. He was out there 80 snaps, and I think our snap count on defense was about 80. So I think he played every snap on defense and gave up 5 yards in the entire game when targeted. And it goes to show that tactic of throwing over the middle in that game was because the Rams recognize him as a genuine, top 5 corner in the league. He is a shutout corner, and we've forced a team to do something that should be a restriction to them, but we didn't cope with it, and it turned into a real ace up their sleeve. Doesn't change the fact that Tariq Woolen, is a serious force and causing teams to, he's giving people headaches without even doing anything. That's what I'm trying to say.
Thank you for pointing that out, Mitch, because on the made pod that we did in the last one, I kind of held my tongue a little bit because his name was brought up a little bit, and he didn't play as well, and blah 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 blah, and I just think people look at Tariq Woolen, if he's not getting an interception in a game now, people don't think he's playing well, or if he's not passing defense, swatting passes out of the air, then he's not playing well. But I mean, 5 yards. I think PFF ranked him as like 31 or 34 out of corners in week 1, and I think our next best was like 81 of like Trey Brown, and then Mike Jack was like 90 something. And like I said again, I know it's against Rams backups, but even so, I think just
ranking
because
30th when people don't want to throw your direction is pretty good.
Pretty good, and like I say, I just think people need to temper their expectations and look at it and go, look, even if he doesn't get an interception in the game, even if he's not swatting passes out the air and making all these highlight plays, it doesn't mean he's not there. It doesn't mean he's not locking up his guy. They're just like we said in the preseason, they're not gonna throw Tariq's way that often when they don't need to, and they didn't need to. The Rams did not need to throw Tariq's way because they were beating us in every other aspect of the game anyway. So why risk it? So I'm glad his name was brought up in a more positive light, because I've seen a little bit of Tariq slander in the last week, and I've not been enjoying it. So.
Oh yeah, it's any negativity going Tariq's way for last week is just, it's silly. That people are disappointed after the result, and people have high expectations of Tariq. He can't carry the team on his back. He plays a position where teams can completely choose to not involve you in the game. It is then up to the other players on the pitch to use that as an opportunity to make plays, because they are going to see the ball, that you either get exposed or you step up in those situations. And unfortunately, there were too many players that didn't seize the opportunity. And I think that is not a reflection on Reek. I'm going to very quickly bring up Boye Mafe as well. We've briefly touched on it earlier, that the PFF grades for Boye Mafe overall 85 grade for the game, which is strong. His run defense grade, setting the edge on the left, 94, which I think was
Excellent.
4th in the league this
Excellent.
weekend. That's outstanding.
Mm.
And shows exactly what Pete's been talking about with him as an improved player, what we've all hoped to see from him. Pass rushing grade of 76, which is not terrible at all. That shows he must have had some pressures, because I don't think he got a sack or anything. No, we didn't think that he had a single sack anyway, so he couldn't have.
No.
But to have a 76 pass rushing grade for a team that didn't get a sack is very good, because that shows he at least got consistent pressure when he wasn't just setting the edge, and an 86 tackling grade as well, showing that when someone was in his zone, he was making those tackles securely. Anything from you want to say about Boye Mafe? You on the hype train with him?
Oh, absolutely. I've never really gotten off it, and now I'm driving it. I'm the conductor, because I think
That's on.
he's proven in that last game that he's now a fully fledged starter. There's no more rotational Boye Mafe now. He's a full starter as much as they want to play him. You don't need to worry about stamina rotating him. He's to get those kind of grades in our worst pass rushing performance that I can remember in a very long time. Says a lot about Boye Mafe. I think, like I say, they'll keep him in the rotation with Darrell Taylor, because Darrell Taylor is too of a talented raw pass rushing athlete for them not to keep him involved in the game plan. But if Darrell Taylor's Mafe's only kind of contender at the minute, I think he's going forward now. He's locked down that starting spot off either edge. I think he can play off either edge. I don't think he's limited to one side or the other. And he's just so versatile, so good, such a Swiss Army knife. He's so good in the run. He's so good in the pass. I love him. I think he's excellent. And I can't wait to see what he does this season, because this feels like his rookie season for me now. Now he's a fully fledged starter. This feels like his first real chance to kind of have a prolonged look at Boye Mafe, playing snaps, playing it sort of week in, week out, and I think he's going to shine. If no one else does, I think he will.
The other thing is, it's nice to have a player making inroads and getting more snaps in a position that we've been crying out for as well. I think securely setting the edge is something that's probably been said a lot of times by Seahawks fans over the last couple of years. So to have someone that can do it, but also give a bit of juice on pass rush as well, it's really nice. It's a really nice evolution for our squad. Next one I wanted to talk about very briefly was Ken Walker. I know we only really saw good stuff on offense in general in the first half, but he did finish the half well on his way to a 100-yard game. He was making good runs. He was making good decisions. He was taking everything the defense was giving him. He was keeping us on schedule with our offense in general. I mean, we scored on every possession apart from the one that hit the post with the field goal before half time. So we really were just marching the ball. So I think his grades were good as well. 92 rushing grade for him, 82 pass blocking, which was a surprise to me. It's not what you come to expect from him when he's on the field. But I guess when you've got Aaron Donald, Aaron Rodgers isn't doing an awful lot of running this week.
No, he's not.
No, when you've got Donald running at your quarterback, you need everyone to pitch in occasionally and chip him and throw their body under the incoming train that is Aaron Donald. So that was nice to see. What did you make of Ken?
Yeah, I thought there was a part when you first talked about Ken there that resonated with me, and that's better decisions. I think last season, his rookie season, he was too boom or bust. Still excellent, but that's what we always said. He was either going for a decent yardage gain, or he was getting blown up behind the line of scrimmage. Whereas this time, I think his decision making looked a lot better in terms of seeing gaps, seeing the field. There was that one play where he bounced out to the left, where he initially went to the right, didn't he? And you thought, oh, this is where he's going to get blown up behind the line of scrimmage. He's gone through the wrong gap. And he reassessed, that low center of gravity and the wheels that he's got on him that we know he has, and he takes it into a 15-yard gate, whatever it was. And I just thought, do you know what? He's making a lot better decisions. He's processing better. He's seeing the field better. So that's what we know. He's quick. We know he's shifty as anything. We know he's a human joystick. But the concerns that we had were basically, is he going to be boom or bust? Is he going to start seeing the field a little bit better? So I think, like you say, yeah, he was well on his way to a 100-yard plus game. I think if like say if the offense was running the way we would have wanted it to, I don't think that would have been in question. But yeah, I was really impressed with his IQ and sort of seeing the field. So I think he's obviously looked at that and started to take some strides in that area. So if he does that's if that was going to be, if anything was going to be his kryptonite, that was potentially going to be it. So if he's fixed that, I mean, hell of a prospect.
I agree, and I think yeah, I'm glad you agreed with me about the decision making. I think if you were to look at his highlights from last year, you'd see a guy that looked like a year 4, year 5 player. But when you actually watch the games, there is a lot of throwaway plays in there that you wouldn't want to bring up again. And they were often due to the offensive line not being able to perform their task in creating, the gap that was schemed up. However, you can still improvise and make those plays. You can see, okay, that gap's not happening. Almost like a quarterback making his going through his checks. Is my line there? No. Okay, that's fine. What have we got? Where can I go and reassess and still get 5 yards? Keep it on schedule. And when you see him making those decisions, he would almost freeze. He'd be like, okay, well, what now? Because that's not. And it was difficult to watch at times because he'd get flattened for a small loss or rip off a huge play. And if he, like you say, if he can add that to his game now and just kind of calmly, okay, that plan A is not there, plan B is this, I'm off. I think and he did that in the first game, and that's why we were obviously talking about it. So more of that, please, for Ken Walker, and even with fewer snaps, I think he can have a far greater year in terms of touchdowns and yardage if he's making better decisions in those situations.
Totally.
Usually we talk about who we think is going to be the most crucial player this year from year 2, but I really think we've addressed that with Ken Walker and Mafe. I think we're both in agreement that we are really leaning heavily on those 2 year 2 players. The only 2 that we could maybe bring up that we usually say were crucial were the 2 tackles, but unfortunately they're not going to be there. But I think when you look at that year 2 class now, Cross, Mafe, Walker, Abraham, Kobe Bryant, Tariq Woolen. Once we get to Tariq Young, obviously less reliant. But those names I've read out to you, you would genuinely, if they're not number 1 on the positional chart, they're number 2. That's an outstanding contribution from those year 2 players.
Oh. Like you say, every one of them is now a fully fledged starter. It's only, like say, Tariq Young and Tyreek Smith that haven't sort of grabbed starting roles yet, but that's not to say that they can't be decent contributors. We know that Tariq Young can be a decent contributor. Get Tyreek Smith, we haven't seen enough of yet. But I mean, like I say, if the defense continues to play the way it was playing, I'm sure he'll get an opportunity sooner rather than later. But like you say, yeah, Tariq Woolen is obviously a starter. Kobe's starting every game. Lucas and Cross, when they're fit, are obviously starters, and Walker and Mafe are now. So it's a hell of a draft. It's an absolutely, we've smashed out the park the last 2 drafts. Like I say, we're still looking forward to seeing some of our guys from our rookie class from this year. But you can already tell that when everyone is there 100% settled into their respective schemes on offense and defense, there's so much young talent on this team, and it's such an exciting time to be following the team in terms of the rookies and players coming through, because the next generation is right there in front of us. And we're nailing the draft. So hopefully long may it continue.
Yeah, I agree. We are going to finish up here. I think we've talked about everything we need to. I'm just going to mention one final little thing to you here, James. I don't know whether you've noticed this. You might have. In fact, I'll ask you the question. Considering we call ourselves a 3-4 defense, implying that we've got 3 linemen and 4 linebackers in most of that's our scheme. Most of our schemes are based upon that, right? How many snaps on defense this week do you think we actually lined up with 3 defensive linemen?
0.
This is a really interesting fact that's come out of the game, and I think I have a theory as to why. What do you think? Very close. It was 7. I think it was 7 snaps out of 80 we lined up that way. And my theory on this is just that we are far more talented on the edge with our linebackers and with players like Draymond Jones, who can also play defensive end, Mike Morris, who can play defensive end, the linebacking core we've got that are coming off the edge, than we are in the center of the defensive line. And I think we've just, maybe because the center of the defensive line hasn't quite developed as we wanted it. Like, how many times did you see Mario Edwards?
I can't remember him playing.
It was about 30% of snaps, and it was Mario Edwards from that first choice defensive line that dropped out, and we saw Jaron Reed playing as a defensive tackle, and we saw Mike Morris rotating as a defensive tackle on the edge and in the interior with Draymond Jones. So I'm of the opinion that either our defensive line hasn't worked out as they planned, or they're bowing down to the fact that we've got far too many talented edge rushers to not have them on the field at this point.
Because I was watching them in pre-season, and even towards the back end of last season, and then obviously this first game, and I'm thinking, and you're right, I'm thinking, I'm sure we're meant to be 3-4, and I'm looking at the defensive line and the line of scrimmage at the start of each play, and I'm counting 4 pass rushes, and I'm thinking this isn't 3-4, and or at least unless they're shit at maths, this isn't 3-4. You know,
I mean,
and
essentially, usually it would look like 4 anyway, because you'd have nose, 3 tech, and then one edge there, and then you'd have the other defensive end, not defensive end, edge setting the edge on the other side, but possibly being schemed into coverage. So it would look like 4, but it would actually be three defensive linemen. But what we were setting up with was 2, and then 2 edge linebackers and 2 middle linebackers, which is 4. It's 4-2, isn't it? But with loads of defensive backs. But they've bastardized what we were supposed to be to try and get more edge rush from our outside linebackers. I can't say
it doesn't. It feels like we've just running a complete hybrid. It doesn't feel like we've got a set scheme. It just feels like really sort of hybrid, not made up on the fly, but just sort of, because obviously method to it. But like you say, it doesn't feel, it's not a true 3-4 at all. I don't care what anyone says. We're not playing a true 3-4. So it can't be that. And there's definitely elements of 4 in there. There's sprinklings of 3-4. It's a bit of everything. It's a bit of everything mashed up. And I've not really seen anything really like it in before in terms of Seattle, or in recent years anyway, with Pete Carroll. And like I say, it feels like they don't know whether to let go of the 3-4 and move back to 4-3, or whether do you know what I mean? It feels like they're looking at it going, what do we do? Because do we want to persist with 3-4, or do we want to go back to Pete Carroll's trusty 4-3? And it feels like they don't really know what the camps sort of split down the coaching room, whether to do one thing or do the other, and they just kind of said, well, do you know what, we'll just do both and see if it works.
I think maybe they're just playing to the personnel they've got and trying to get the most talent they can on the field. But at the end of the day, if your scheme gets countered by your opponents, the entirety of the game, we start to see what we saw from Stafford last week. That's my take on it. And if you're going to rush 4, if you're going to put 4 out there and rush 4 and then put loads of defensive backs in an umbrella behind them, you're going to need those defensive backs to make plays on the ball, because we didn't see any of that. And you're going to need your 4 that you're rushing to get pressure. We didn't see any of that either. So just a take. I thought I'd throw it out there so we could briefly discuss it. But that's us for this week. I think that concludes the Rookie Watch for this week. We'll be back after our next game against the Lions with the main pod and with Rookie Watch. If you want to join us in our discussions, we've got a very open and friendly Discord channel. You can come and join. You can find it on all of our socials. It's linked there. Our discussions are multi-topics. We talk about the draft when that's relevant. We've got fancy football leagues set up and discussion and tips. We talk about everything in-game and out-game, and it's a great place to come and talk with fellow 12s. So come and join us and follow us on all of our socials.
Absolutely, get involved, everyone. And like I say, thank you for listening. As always, we love you all. Mitch, I'll let you cast the signing off as you always do.
Yeah, well, James, you can join me in saying "Go Hawks."
Go Hawks.
See you next week, guys.
See you next week.